This is Roosevelt Pitt Jr., creator of Purge, and the new executive producer or co-executive producer of Purge Techno City, the movie, coming soon. Thanks for having me back again, guys.
And this is Frederick Emmerson, co-executive producer of Purge Techno City live action movie. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, that's what's up. Last time we spoke with Mr. Pitt, he was talking about Purge and how he created and all that stuff. So it's good to get like an update on it. So tell us what's been going on with Purge, Mr. Pitt.
Well, about maybe a year or so ago, I think, time does fly. About a year ago, a little bit over a year, Mr. Frederick Emmerson, who has graced us with his presence in this podcast interview, sent me out a letter saying, hey, I am a big fan of Purge, and I'm interested in taking it from comic book to live action, right? And so that was something that hit my email box, and then I had to make sort of like a connection because he actually had purchased books from me as well. So as I was shipping the books out to what I perceived to be another, customer, client, it ended up being the same person. Like, wait a minute, this is the same guy. So we connected, and through a lot of conversation, a lot of I guess bonding in a business way concerning Purge, and me sharing my vision, and we decided, that this is a partnership in the making to bring Purge to the live action screen, man. So it was very exciting to me. And I know Frederick has his own story, and I don't want to take that thunder away from him because his familiarity with Purge goes back many years. So I really feel that the ancestors and the universe brought us together at the right time. And now we're on the precipice of actually starting filming very, very soon. We just finalized script as a past couple of weeks, and we're really excited about how it came out. We have an expert, very professional, well-versed writing team that's working with us to bring this story to its fullness and to the greatness that I have always envisioned almost 30 years ago when Purge was created. So wow, I can't wait to talk about it. But again, I'll turn it over to Frederick, and he can share, his connection with Purge and how far that goes back.
So it was very interesting. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, back on the East Coast. And there was in the 90s, this very small, like, independent comic store around the corner. I used to go there all the time. My dad used to take me there all the time. And that's where I first found the Purge comic, right? Growing up, and I, of course, now I'm in the entertainment industry. I was searching for, kind of always in the back of my head, to do something with this character, but you just don't know if this character still exists. So at a time where I was, working with a certain studio, won't say it, on a certain Black superhero character that we tried to come to life, and it didn't work out, I kind of took a step back and was like, let me see if this character even still exists. I happened to do a random Google search, and I found that Mr. Pitt was still, he recreated the character in a modern sense. So at that moment, I immediately reached out. Like my pops always says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I was like, I'm not gonna have agent. No, I'm gonna reach out directly to Mr. Pitt so he understands, coming from a fan first, that I would like the opportunity to, produce a live action version of this story. But not in a way where I'm just buying in and doing it. I want him a partner and a part of the process. So things have been really, really working out well with putting the team together. It was just meant to be that a previous project that I was going to be a part of went through, and this door opened up. So this is almost meant to be for us to work together.
What got you into producing?
So for me, my story is a little bit different. I started out in the music business as an artist. I'm an actor as well. The reason why I kind of start shifting recently my thought process into producing the projects, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of other Black minority people who are in the game who feels the same way. I got tired of going to the same auditions for the same roles or playing the same type of role. Gangbanger, athlete, just when you're Black, and definitely a Black man in Hollywood, you are pigeonholed to a certain type of stereotype.
Oh, like Hollywood Shuffle.
Yes, exactly. And I just got tired of that. So I did it the right way, very slowly, and kind of surrounding myself with people who know the business, and just started out with doing short films and music videos, and then growing from there. So that's how I actually really like, you know what, I want to produce something of value that people can't come in and try to pick apart and turn into something else. I always felt like Black people needed a character. We needed our own Batman or Superman or whatever, instead of him being a secondary character to everybody else. Because that's what we have right now. So definitely something like this caught my attention with Purge, and trying to kind of like go at that. But I got started the way everybody else, kind of just in the game, started out music, transitioned to film.
So can you like run us through like what does a producer do when it comes to music and comic books and TV and film?
A lot of people say I'm a producer, but I think people don't understand what a producer actually does.
It's funny you say that, because at first I didn't know until I found out the hard way. I will say the music world is completely different than the film world. I mean, they both have their certain type of politics, but as a producer in the film and TV world, you're as executive producer, you're basically the person putting together the project. It's up to you to find the right director. It's up to you to put the writing team together. You're basically the cultivator of the idea, and you're seeing it from beginning to end throughout the entire basis of the project. So you're basically the creator of make sure everything's together. As the executive producer, as a producer, you'll hear a lot of times somebody's a producer in name only. That's because they know somebody that knows somebody, and they gave their, hey, you have my permission to do this. For me, I'm
Okay.
more hands-on with, picking directors, creating this story from live action, from the script, from beginning to end. We kind of, that's how a producer is. You're overseeing the whole project.
Is there any movies that we would know that you produced?
I've done a lot, mostly recently. I have a horror film called The Dispatch coming out this year. I've most of the stuff was from acting wise, just smaller roles here and there, but nothing out that is notable just yet that I can be proud of and point to.
Hey, I just watched the indie movie this morning. So hey, ain't nothing wrong with it.
Exactly. I mean, I've been in the game for a little bit. This is a little difference.
Nowadays, when you want to be like a young like director or like movie maker to get in the game, now you have to make a horror film. 'Cause that's the only way you can get like a nice small cheap budget to make something. Like all these new horror movies you see right now, they actually have really good stories. It's just they have to put some spooky monster or something in it to get the budget, because no one wants to give you a budget for anything other than a superhero or something else. Which ain't nothing wrong with that, but we want more than just Marvel like every year, and a couple of DC. We don't have nothing else like from what is Image Comics, or we don't have nothing from the other publishing comic book companies.
It feels like Marvel has a lot of people on the comic book film game because like you said, nobody else is coming out with their own comic book movie.
And if they do it, they gotta do like a dark version of like a hero.
Or you gotta be super corporate, super, by the numbers. You cannot have any type of freedom. You cannot expand or do something that's, that's not the status quo.
And that's one of the reasons why, I've done a lot of, because when I first jumped into the superhero, the idea of doing a superhero project, even with the previous company studio I was going to do the previous project with, at that moment, I surrounded myself with a bunch of the big wigs, the big director, big studio execs, just to kind of see how the process worked. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I'm like, okay, I took a lot from that time to be able to put into this, but I also know what not to do. A lot of people are scared to make those kind of movies now, simply because the fear of oversaturation of the market, as well as you're not really getting to make the characters the way you want. And when there's a major studios involved, they are giving you that checklist. Hey, we need this, this, and this. You have to make the character this, or we're not going to give you the money to do it. Very rarely do you luck out like me and Roosevelt Pitt here. We lucked out with the studio partners that we're going to have, to where we have creative control. So that's one of the things that's stopping a lot, because there are a lot of people who have the talent and original stories that they could tell. They just fear that coming out and not getting the support, or they fear that next step that you need to take.
So what studio with? Annapurna, A24. Who you with?
Oh, so we're gonna be co-producing this project with OpenGate and Real. Yeah, they have been amazing from the jump. They kind of, when you're going into a potential new partnership with someone or business relationship with somebody, you don't know what's going to turn into. But from the very beginning, they have let us know, hey, you guys have creative control. We may give an input here and there, but we want to be your supportive system from the beginning to the end. They've been there, so it's been very, very refreshing to say the least.
So the process of like filmmaking, I'm assuming y'all in like what, pre-production still?
Roosevelt, would you say pre-production or would you say development? Because the way it starts.
I would say at this point we're in the end of development. Pre-production, as I said, would hopefully we expect to start soon, since the script is finished. So that's how I would see it.
So we did ours a little bit differently than what some other people have done it. At first, when we had the idea, we kind of knew what we wanted to do with this character, singularly focused on this movie. We created an idea script or a spec script is what it's called. It's just, hey, this is our original thought process of how we're going to attack it. Then we got with OpenGate and we formulated the one sheet and all the organization of everything. And then after that, we took all that information, got with our writers, and we formulated it a plot point based on that spec script, and then we wrote a totally new script for the movie based on a lot of the ideas and everything we've happened. We've taken our time, we've taken the process to write. So now we recently just finished up that shooting script, and so now we're going to be shifting over into make sure everybody has a thumbs up, and then getting to some more of the pre-production of casting principal characters and stuff like that very soon.
This is a question for Mr. Pitt. How is the transition from comic book writing to film? Is it easy, or do you have to like adapt to a new type of medium, or do you find it like more easier to write the script as a comic book story than a movie script?
Some ways it's similar, to be totally honest. Because I've written scripts for animation before, my own projects, of course. So I'm not unfamiliar with screenplay or script writing for movies. However, there is a distinct difference on how things translate from comic book to movies. And one thing I've learned a lot from Frederick is that when we're looking at story and we only have so much time to tell it. See, when I'm writing, sometimes I just write until, I get through whatever story idea I have. Well, that necessarily doesn't work well within a movie. If you're only dealing with 120 minutes, and I know if I just write until everything that's in my head is actually on paper, that could be 200 pages, easy with me. So there are ways that I had to learn to condense the story, to increase the amount of character, or increase the improvement of character development, pacing, as well as scene to scene connectivity, okay, in a way that you don't have to do in the way you don't do or have to do in comic books. For example, in comic books, when I'm writing a script, I'm describing how the person's expressions are, if they're necessarily angry, if they're snarling, if they're gritting their teeth, or maybe they are afraid or terrified. So you go into a little bit more detail when you're writing a comic book script. But when I took my comic book writing sensibilities over to movies, I had to tone down on that, okay? So there were some things that Frederick helped me to understand that, well, Roosevelt, you don't need to say this here, because that's more of a director's note. That's where he comes in. So, for example, where in a script I could say, Purge leaps and falls gingerly, right? In a script, comic book script, that works. In a movie script, that's what that director can help and direct, basically. And say, okay, well, when the hero falls here, he needs to kind of, limp a little bit. He's not going to be right back on his feet. He would make that call, and I can do the best I can within the script to convey that, but I don't necessarily have to say it verbatim in the script as I would in a comic book script, if that makes sense. So those type of things I had to learn to navigate and tweak along the way, and just basically change my wiring in my head as I'm writing. And it's been a fun experience, and I'm learning a lot. And I've always told Frederick this is new to me. I'm new to this side of it. Even though there are some components that are similar to comic script writing, there's a lot that also isn't. And I have to be able to, tweak things and again navigate through it as I'm writing. And Frederick and my other writing partner has definitely helped me to accomplish that. But like I said, it is an ongoing learning experience because especially as we start filming, there was plenty of questions I would throw out to Frederick as far as direction, simply because I want to make sure that my vision and what I have in place on the script, the integrity of it, is intact.
Where can they find Yuki?
You can find me on my website at yukithesnowman.com. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Yuki the Snowman. On Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, you can find me at Yuki the Snowman 314. And you can hit up my Cash App. My Cash App is $BenjaminASnow.
You want to find me? I'm on YouTube at Dark Dreams, Bright Ideas. I'm on Twitter at SuperLostFan108. I'm on Instagram at The TV Guru 108. You can find my Cash App down in the description below. We see you guys and gals in the next one.
Later.
That's why I always try to tell people, man, like you have to be focused on the grassroots, specifically the black grassroots. Because let it be known, like it's movies that was created years ago that black people still to this day still quote and still say, like Friday, all those 90s hood movies, like those still are classic for a reason. But people don't really want to find that lane anymore. That if you just cater to just black folks, you will live forever.
Because people gotta realize, like, black folks, we will tell the truth about your product. If your product suck, we will tell you that because we spend so much time and money supporting you, and we get it sucking shit back. No.
Yeah.
And if you understand, black people, we create the culture.
Yeah.
We push the culture forward. Like if our supporters, we want everybody to love this film, love our universe, right? But if at first it's embraced and supported by our community, what's happening? It's wash, rinse, repeat. Other communities jump on board because whatever our community likes is the cool hip thing. So, and I think there was a time where people pushed back on that. They want to be commercial. The term commercial was getting thrown around as a way to be kind of like popular, instead of like, hey, you play your lane, you get your people to support, you get this section of people to support you. Everybody else is going to jump on board because they're going to want to be a part of it too.
Yep, that's the Boondocks is a perfect example of that. The Boondocks cartoon. No one read that dang comic in the newspaper that was talking about politics. Like a lot of people don't understand. The Boondocks was talking about politics. It wasn't talking about yo this and all that. It was very anti-black a little. and like when the show came out, it actually geared towards the younger black audience, and it got people in. Because people are shocked when I got comics upstairs of the Boondocks. People are like, whoa, that's the Boondocks? Like, yeah, it does. It's talking about George Bush and politics. They're not talking about, Cardi B. A lot like the point you just made earlier, Yuki, about how we're like so hard on the artists that make things. It's because that's a perfect example is the Apollo. We were so hard on people who did things at the Apollos because we know people who can sing, who can do jokes. Like my cousin more funny than you do. Prove it to me.
Like it's always a cliche that we always joke around. Like when you say, like, we know people who do that shit. That's why you need to be more talented when you produce and actually make sure your stuff is great.
Back in the day, like the early comedians like Richard Pryor, Red Fox, they did more than comedy. They sang, danced, they did they did everything.
Sports, even
like. You couldn't just be a normal like black person back then. You had to be multi-talented because no one cares about you being basic. We're spending our time and hard-earned money to go see your stuff. You better truly entertain us.
Exactly, and I think we just, as filmmakers with this project, was taking our time and putting together a story that people would, one, be able to relate to certain aspects of it. Two, understand the underlining messages that are throughout this entire film, and there is, and three, not make it feel like it's what I don't want to throw nobody under the bus in terms of like a company or a project, but there's certain things that come on a certain network, like the CW. You almost feel like, okay, man, you create this whole character, and you're trying to fake cater to us, right? You're faking it. And I think me and Roosevelt and our other writing partner, we really harped on this entire project of like, we cannot do that. We do not want this to be one of those fake things.
Oh my
That
gosh.
just comes off unauthentic. I'm like, no, I want this to be an authentic experience that there's aspects that people can relate to. And we're not placating anything. We're not doing something just so someone else we need to check a box. No, we're just creating a character and telling a story.
A perfect example. I had to say this before we end the interview. Like I had to bring this up. Nate Parker. I'm sorry, Nate Parker, man. You tricked us. You tricked the whole black grassroots community with American Skin, man. You made that movie and that trailer made it look like black folks was gonna infiltrate a police precinct and hold them hostage, and it turned into a diversity training meeting.
No,
you lied to us, man. You made it look like black folks was gonna kill cops. And it makes so bad. You knew he was being like, you knew he was lying to us because people on Twitter kept saying of him like black folks congratulating him like, man, I can't wait for this movie. I can't wait to see it, man. This for our people, right? And he like, yeah. He's saying one words. He's not really being deep about it. And then you watch it and it's like, you tricked us, dude. You trying to get back into Hollywood instead of just making a movie for black folks. He didn't kill a single cop. but if you watch the trailer, you be like, oh man, they're gonna be going and killing cops. Oh man,
these cops.
Nope.
And I think that's one thing that I know I'll let Roosevelt speak on this as well, because very early on we kind of established this tone through our meetings and stuff, is that with this movie we want little black kids to see something and be like, man, I can be that. Like action figures, how we want something that they can look up to, because when you think about it, we don't have it, especially young black boys. They don't have that outside of your athlete, outside of something like that. They don't have that superhero character that they can go to. We had it with Chadwick Boseman. Unfortunately, he passed away. Immediately they turned the character to a girl. So we don't have anything that's going to show that, hey, you can be this, this beam of light, or this, you can have these aspirations and have this comic book character that you love. And I think that throughout this whole process, that weighs heavy on me. That weighs on me, because I want to make sure that we do justice, great movie, great story, all that stuff, but also have something that's going to somewhat make an impact that, little black boy's gonna grow up and say, man, hey mom, can I be Purge for Halloween? Something like that is just huge. I don't know if I think Roosevelt feels the same way, because I know we discussed this before.
Yeah, I'll add to that. When you mentioned about the way some black movies or black creators or developers and so forth start out one way and then end up another, like Nate. When I was thinking about what you were saying, that's one thing that I try not to do, is to give the impression that I'm for something and then basically renege on my promise, when it comes to what I create and put out. And when I think about what we're doing with Purge, let's be clear. Everything has some political aspect to it, because that's part of our lives. However, with our content that we're creating, yeah, the political aspect is going to be there, but it's not going to be something that has to be blatant. It doesn't have to be in your face. You will feel it by the dialogue, by the structure and development of the characters, including where they reside. New Salem in itself is a character. So you're going to know about the political aspects of New Salem. When you see a multitude of black people who are technologically advanced, wearing holographic headset imagery, and they're typing on holographic screens that out in front of them, and you look around, you're like, my God, this is awesome. Where black people are at the forefront or who are movers and shakers, and to see a collective of black people building, even if it is somewhat of a fantasy or fiction. That is going to lead people, hopefully, as Frederick says, to be inspired to share with their children so they can say, man, we are in science. We are in the future. And there's one thing that I was sharing with Frederick, I think one of our conversations, and I said it in a jovial sense. Back in my day, UFOs was a huge thing. It seemed like they're coming back recently in the based on the news. But back in my day, UFOs was a huge thing. And I always wondered, why do I never hear about black people being abducted? It's almost as if the future or outer space or sci-fi doesn't want us. And that's farther from the truth. So what I wanted to do is create to show that we are in the past, the present, and we in the future. And that I hope through that content, through our stories, that it will definitely inspire young kids to know that they are in the past, the present, and the future. And I'm looking forward to bringing that to fruition, where, again, as Frederick mentioned, we can have toys, we can have costumes, we can have people saying, hey, I want to be Purge, or Zentra, which is one of our flagship high-tech mysticism heroines in the Amaraverse. So to me, it's a wonderful opportunity to kind of go against the grain as well with our creativity. And I'm going to be honest, Frederick has been a superb partner in this. He understands my vision. He understands what my goal is as far as building a legacy with my IPs. And so we are in sync. I can't tell how many times we've talked on the phone. He's like, oh my God, that's exactly what I was thinking. Or I'll say, my God, you're right there with me. It's amazing, the connectivity we have. And I always like to mention this, because I think it's awesome in a sense, about how the ancestors work universally with all of us when we're in sync. As of today, I have not met Frederick in person.
Yeah, only video calls and telephone calls.
So that says a lot about our ability to work together and how the ancestors and the universe has brought us together to create these great stories and hopefully more and more content in days to come.
So this is the last question. So as Black creatives, what do you want us to do to produce more for the future? Because we need to have people be inspired to create more Black projects instead of going to Hollywood or just doing the same thing that white people do, and as well as be on code.
So that's a very good question. I've actually had a very similar conversation with other kind of Black aspiring creators like myself who are just trying to do things. And the one thing I will say is support each other. That's probably the biggest one. Like, we're not in competition with each other. We're in support of each other. And I think when people see that, then you're going to see even more of the next person to do it. Because the one thing other communities have done a little bit better than us in terms of that is, if you see a Jewish director who makes a great movie, he has a full support, but he's going to also try to find the next him when he becomes big. I think sometimes we get stuck in our own ways in terms of like worrying that everybody's competition, instead of realizing that, you're just trying to uplift and bring everything forward so that we have our own space to be able to create stories like Purge, Techno City, or other stories like that, to where it's okay. Like, you don't have to look at your fellow brother or sister and look at them as a threat to what you have. That's the one thing I will say is just the supporting and bringing the next person over. Is not everything is like a competition or anything.
I agree, because like people want to, especially in the Black nerd community, they want to compete against each other and not even build. Like, they want to be the top star Black nerd among Black nerds, but in reality, they want white approval.
Right. All they doing is like, whoever say nigga the most is the blackest.
Exactly, and stuff like that. Get into it. Like, there was a situation where a young man was kind of asking. He was trying to pick my brain and asking me questions on set for something else I was working on, and he was almost timid. He was almost timid or scared to ask me my opinion on stuff or how I did something. And he was almost shocked when I was just an open book. I'm like, hey man, this is how I did it. I'm not saying it's right. Black folks, we always gotta put that, hey, I don't know if it's gonna work, but this is how I did it, and this is kind of the stuff that I tried. And he was almost like, wow, like you were just open to share, and that just told me how it usually is. Everyone's kind of like, I can't give away too much of my secrets because I don't want you to catch up to me, and now I don't have my own space. There's enough room for all of us. There's enough room for everybody to eat. That's my motto.
Well, the way I look at it is similar. I mentioned this particular brother, I believe, during our first podcast, and his name is Mishindo Koba.
Yes.
30-year-old friend of mine, one of the best artists on the planet as far as I'm concerned. And now he is one person that I could take that position, keep him to myself, don't share with anybody. But at the end of the day, what does that do for him? If I took that position. So luckily, I don't have that type of mindset. And I believe in what I call my Tulsa Black Wall Street mindset. That's what I call it. Basically keeping the money within our group, sharing with one another so no one goes hungry. So in other words, if someone says, hey, do you know an artist who can do realistic paintings or character design? Boom, Mishindo's going to come to mind. If someone says, hey, look, I'm looking for a person who has a good relationship, with a record label, who perhaps understands music, I'm going to say, oh, well, Frederick Emmerson, you see? I will point them in the direction. And I expect that would be reciprocated. Hey, do you know a comic book script writer who's been in the game for a while? Well, yeah, Roosevelt Pitt Jr. Here's his information. Because at the end of the day, as long as we continue to help one another, then none of us, and I say it again, none of us should go hungry, okay? Now, having said that, that doesn't mean that we don't have the right to vet people well. Because everybody who pretends to be your friend may not be your friend. So that doesn't mean that we don't have the right or shouldn't do the due diligence, no matter who they are. But for the most part, if they are 100 with you and they're on the up and up, and they have proven history of doing what they say they can do within the creative world that we live in, then sure, you share those resources, because that's the only way that we can grow. And that's how I see it. And that's what, again, has worked out well for me over my 30 plus years of being in this business. Well, as always, I appreciate you guys checking in with me and allowing me to be back on. And I'm glad Mr. Frederick Emmerson was available to join us. I'm looking forward to us coming back to you, and maybe a few months, maybe a year, when we are really probably at the end of filming Purge Techno City. Hopefully we can catch up. And heck, man, hopefully maybe we can even have you guys, ship you a few clips and some behind the scenes stuff that no one else can get, only through swarthynerd. That'll be cool. That way they have to come to you guys to get the updates on what's happening behind the scenes. Able to do something like that, because you guys are good brothers. You've been good to me over the years that I've known you, and that'll be a way to continue to promote what we're doing while getting your podcast the respect and the awareness that I know it deserves.
Thank you for having me on, man. These are new spaces, so I'm glad to be able to kind of come in there and just kind of chat and just have an honest conversation and kind of back and forth. Look forward, like Roosevelt said, to sharing more about Purge Techno City, the live action film, as well as a lot of the ideas that we have for our connected universe that's coming soon as well. Definitely gonna be shooting some of that information to you guys too. But thanks so much for having me on.
You can find me on Instagram under Roosevelt Pitt, all one word, Roosevelt Pitt. You can check me out as far as the comic books that I offer, as well as other things such as t-shirts and the like. And that's amaraentertainment.com. You also can find me on Facebook, Purge Past Unspoken on Facebook, and you can check out updates there as well.
Best way to find me is probably on Instagram at Frederick Daniel Emmerson. That's Emmerson with 2 M's. That's the best way to find me, kind of keep up to date with everything I have going on.
Where can they find Yuki?
You can find me on my website, YukiTheSnowman.com. You can find me on Facebook, Facebook.com/Yuki the Snowman. On Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. You can find me Yuki the Snowman 314. And you can Oh, my Cash App is $BenjaminASnow.
You want to find me? I'm on YouTube at Dark Dreams, Bright Ideas. I'm on Twitter at SuperLostFan108. I'm on Instagram at the TV Guru 108. You can find my Cash App down in the description below. We see you guys and gals in the next one.
Later.